asking me about the secret sauce of the success of SAP. This is something on daily basis we discuss with our customers who are evaluating SAP and non-SAP solution.
What your actual process within that business absolutely needs.
What's the next thing we as automotive company we need to offer to the market?
It's not only about the systems, but actually making people's life easier.
And this is helping us, helping Proaxia, everyone in the industry to really understand the challenges of these teams.
A lot of people, when we talk about systems, they think it's just systems that people design or implement.
And this is really the big value we bring to the table as SAP, because all of this will be part of your platform.
It is very important going into the future, having a system that integrates well with all components around it.
So yes, really this integration piece that we worked on, and with partners like Proaxia, who are specialized since day one in the automotive industries, we were able to build that platform.
In which vertical within the automotive industry do you think AI will deliver more value?
Yes, we are getting you a new tool, but the creativity of people should focus on something else.
The main key here is always to make the end customer feel he's having a seamless customer journey.
The success of any project or any IT project, it's about the value we bring to the customer. So we have to focus on the value.
It was really a pleasure also celebrating hitting the 100,000 with you.
Mabruk again. This is a
Thank
big
you very
milestone
much.
and I'm happy you're celebrating it in SAP office. Hopefully the 1 million, we will celebrate it together
Also,
as well.
yeah.
I want to thank Proaxia and you, Shadi, specifically. And I hope we have many people in other industries like Shadi in the automotive. So all the best. And I hope I added something to your podcast.
Thank you very much. And it was a great pleasure having you today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Marwan, good morning.
Good morning, Shadi.
It's really a pleasure having you on board today. There is a couple of occasions, to be honest. The first one is that the podcast crossed and hit the 100,000 followers on YouTube.
Mabruk, congrats.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And honestly speaking, it was a golden opportunity because the journey started actually 1 year back, and during one of our events. It was a trigger basically for the industry, and hearing from different experts, and that was the idea of the podcast, having a platform for the automotive industry discussing all aspects within the business. So it started all from an SAP event, and today celebrating one major milestone, at least for me, and it's not just numbers, but what we achieved even together.
See, I'm not surprised because the passion you have, Shadi, for the industry, I think this is a great success, and I'm sure very soon maybe we'll cross the 1 million.
Hopefully together as well. Today's episode, it's going to be talking about the technology and SAP, of course. But let me give you a little background, and I don't think I ever told you that before. Mm-hmm. I was actually one of the very first users in Alphateam back in the days in 2003 on SAP.
Oh, that's
and
good to know.
That is another angle, which I don't think why a lot of people don't know why I'm biased towards SAP. But I mean, there is a lot of angles to it, and there is a lot of reasons. But again, let's start from the very beginning. Marwan and SAP. Now, a lot of people, when we talk about systems, they think it's just systems that people design or implement. They don't know that it's all about people. And when we say people and the human factor, even interacting in technology companies, and especially the big ones. And I know that, as a matter of fact, in working with SAP, you guys evolve everything about the human factor.
Yeah.
But let me start first with you, Marwan. Your leadership role, and it's not an easy role to maneuver around all these challenges, but we will start first with you.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Shadi, for having me. So me as Marwan, I mean, I came here to the country almost 27 years ago now. In fact, my whole professional life was built in UAE and Dubai. I joined SAP around 2012 By the way, for the people who don't know, you mentioned Al Futtaim. Al Futtaim is one of our first customers in the country. In fact, SAP opened their first office in Dubai was in 2008. Before that, it was run by a partner. So I came at the moment where SAP board decided to invest in the region in 2012, and there was a dedicated, at that time we used to call it MENA plan for SAP between UAE and other Middle East countries. And this is where, as a team, we started building really the full ecosystem of SAP in the country. Of course, I went through different roles, starting from an account executive to a sales manager, and then I took over the MD role almost 2 years plus now. As you said, I mean, it was always my number one priority, the people. So at the end, I mean, everyone talks about the culture of the companies, and it all linked to us as the people, as a team, how we create the culture, how we want the culture to be. But what's more important is, other than the internal culture, is how we are perceived in the market, how we deal with our customers, with our partners. And I think from your interaction with SAP, you know how we work. Even with our partner, we work as one team. We make sure we deliver together, especially with Proaxia, because technically when we say auto, it is SAP and Proaxia, that's it. So that's very important, as you said. And to be frank, I always look at it from a leadership, as you said, perspective, that if you don't have the right team, if you don't have happy employees within your organization, then you cannot make sure your customers are happy and your partners are happy and so on.
Let me elaborate a little bit in that area, because I wanted to ask you, at what point in your journey that you realized it's not only about the systems, but actually making people's life easier? And I've watched a couple of your podcasts. Yeah. And one of the things you always stress about is going back to the basics and making or having that equilibrium in the equation into making people's lives easier, convenient, and having that happy journey. Yeah. But at what point did you get to that equation?
In fact,
I'm curious.
That's a good question, and it's the first time someone asked me the question. And to be fair, the point where I realized all this stuff, especially the point related to people and culture, when I joined LinkedIn. And you know, LinkedIn at that time also, it was new here in the region.
It was ramping up.
Yes, and it was like a startup, right? And it was always, I mean, LinkedIn was known about the culture. So everything we focus on was the people and the culture within the organization. And this is really where we saw it in action, and we tested it. In fact, as you said, how building a culture, how it makes a big change when it comes to delivering the service to your customer, how they will accept you, how they will interact with you. I learned a lot through my experience at LinkedIn, and I want to thank LinkedIn and the whole management team and my team whom I used to work with at that time. And to be frank, that experience I brought it also to SAP. Since I became a people manager, I always try to make sure this is part of my daily job. And when I became an MD as well, I always push my first line sales managers to have that mindset, because they are also more interacting on daily basis with the team more than myself. But I always make sure in any type of event, employee related event, that we take care of this point to the maximum.
I was actually about to ask you what you just answered. So that will make me move to the next point, which is SAP and the automotive industry. Now, SAP has a genius way of working, which is the industry-specific solutions or verticals.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's honestly genius. And I come from the automotive hardcore operational background, not IT. And because I interacted with SAP even since the old days, and I've seen how things evolve, I've always admired how SAP goes, because it makes it almost impossible for competitors to keep up. Now, there is a couple of points, of course. If we go into technical, there is a lot of stuff. But today it's not about the technical, basically. It's more that SAP interacts with the manufacturer, and they are, I would easily say, they are the first or number one ERP solution leading within that area for automotive manufacturers. That's number one. When we talk about dealers, SAP easily also is ramping up a very high market share worldwide, not just in the region. Of course, I have the numbers, but let's not, again, dive into that. And then that leads me to a very important question, because I know now you're taking it to the customer. And when we speak even about AI and the core and all these things, a lot of people don't understand that the engine behind all this is SAP. And even when we talk about ERP, DMS, customer, or CRM, the whole journey, SAP links it in a genius way. The real question now is, how did SAP come to that conclusion going to the future that they need to link every single step, starting from the backbone?
Yeah. See, in fact, this is a great question. I mean, and to be frank, you're asking me about the secret sauce of the success of SAP, which I will reveal it. I mean, this is something on daily basis we discuss with our customers who are evaluating SAP and non-SAP solution. There are three things. Really, there are three things that make SAP special. One, as you mentioned, all our solutions were built based on processes. So we don't talk products, modules. We talk about a process: order to cash, hire to retire, design to operate, and so on. So that DNA existed since SAP. 1972, more than 50 years, and we continued with that vision, with that strength that we have in our applications. The second part is the industry focus. I mean, today there are many ERPs in the market. And if you compare really ERP to ERP, you'll have some features here better than other features there and vice versa. But the core thing is the industry expertise we have. So we cover more than 25 industries. Automotive is one of them. And we go deep in these industries. So it's not like just providing small solutions here and there. And the power of this, that we talk the customer language in whatever industry they are in. And second, the integration piece, which today, when we talk about AI, maybe later we'll talk about it. If you don't have that integration, then you'll not get the data that you need for your AI. And the third point is the people, the DNA. So today, if you look at, I will talk simply about the success of SAP in UAE and how many of our customers today who are using every month, every quarter, we have customer moving from competition to SAP. There is, other than the technology, there is a big reason. We engage with the customer as one team. Wherever is the implementation, whoever is the partner or the SI doing it, SAP team will be part of the implementation to make sure it's a successful implementation. So we don't leave customers along the way to secure the implementation. So you have the right technology, you have the industry solution, and you have the right engagement during the implementation. So there is no way you can fail.
I need to add a little bit of that secret sauce and to reveal, because we almost, as you mentioned, have that conversation with customers on a daily basis in the automotive industry. The main secret recipe, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is that SAP, when they look at the automotive business, they know that the core is the chassis. It's the object. And everything else evolves around it.
Correct.
Now, in all the solutions I've interacted with, even till day, now forget that the other solutions come not from an ERP background, they actually come from a frontliner, then they try to go to the backbone, but they don't treat the chassis as the main object. They try to configure every single process as a different object. So a spare part, for example, will be an object, and it will be so super complex. And that is where it lies, the answer, that you don't have to have a complex system in order to solve and make everyone's life easier.
Correct. That's key, as you said. And I think one of the great strategies that or visions, especially with Christian Klein when he took over the CEO role, that we made sure that our platform is open and not closed platform, right? So we can, like when we talk automotive, us and Proaxia, you feel it's the same product, right?
It is.
And this is what we are doing in all the other industries. But as you said, especially in a complex industry like automotive, imagine all these spare parts, all the services you provide. If you're talking about OEMs, manufacturing, all this complexity, if you don't have that backbone or chassis, you call it, I call it the heart, technically. Without the heart, you cannot work.
Now, and again, that takes us to connecting the dots. But when did SAP start? Because it's all about connecting the dots. When did SAP realize that when they look at the future, they need to look at those dots and connect them tighter?
See, I mean, if you look at the full history, initially it started at all fully integrated, even a closed system at that time when we started focusing on the manufacturing companies, and these are the old days. And then when things started evolving with the internet and the web-based product and so on, and I remember this maybe was my days when I joined SAP, so you're talking about 2010 to 2014, 15, SAP did a lot of acquisitions. So we went somewhere else to start acquiring top products per LOB when we acquired Business Object at that time, Sybase, I remember SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, and so on. And then we realized at one point of time, we have all these top products along with, as you said, the chassis or the core ERP that we have with all these processes. And we saw the complexity when it comes to the integration and so on. So at that time, there was the decision that we need to unify first the architecture in terms of the data architecture. And at the same time, we started also working on the UX, which is the user interface, because historically the perception was there that SAP is a complex and non-friendly solution, which is true, by the way. But that changed. So if you look the last 6-7 years, the UX, the interface itself, and of course, this is where we focus on platform like Business Technology Platform, BTP, which now we call it Business AI, helped us to orchestrate all these solutions and create to the customer a unified data platform that they can easily interact with. And of course, the AI accelerated everything, because if we don't have this layer, and this is our focus and our investment the last few years, other than the AI platform and tools, is the data piece with the announcement of Business Data Cloud and the integration also with other big players to make sure the customer doesn't have to invest when it comes to interacting with any type of data from SAP. So yeah, it was different, I would say, eras or milestones, but at the end, this is where the right vision was in place. If we didn't have this and we are currently in this AI, we will fail, we will collapse. But we had the integration done properly. Interface, it was also fixed to the right expectation of the customers. And then the data piece, which is the fuel for all these AI innovations that we're working on.
I love the way you phrased it, because it will take us to the next point, which is the OEM, customer at the end, and in the middle is the dealership.
Yes.
And SAP realized that within the future that's coming, that cycle has to be closed and maintained in a very tight way. Now, how important, or when did SAP realize that when talking about the automotive industry, this is absolutely essential going into the future, especially when we are talking about AI?
Yeah. In fact, as I said, automotive really is one of the most complex industries when you look into the details. So, as you said, the OEMs, they are our customers since long time. If you are talking about it's the de facto, SAP is the de facto solution for most of the OEMs when it comes to Mercedes, BMW, and all the big players. And then the dealers, which was the interesting piece, right? So, because in the dealers, you have two parts. You have the interaction with the customer, which is a big chunk of the daily operation of the dealers. But there's also the interaction between the OEMs and the dealers, which, for us as consumers, we don't see it, but really it's a big thing. Yeah. At the same time, as you said, in order to close the loop, the feedback coming from the customer will go to the dealer and then will go to the OEM. Else how the OEM will enhance the cars or support the market with whatever is the consumer is asking for. So yes, really this integration piece that we worked on, and with partners like Proaxia, who are specialized since day one in the automotive industries, we were able to build that platform where if you are working or you are part of an OEM, if you are part of a dealer, or if you are a customer, you see seamlessly this type of interaction between the systems. And as you said, this is paying off now when we talk about AI, because now you have all the data that you need. A very interesting project, in fact, that we are working with BMW. It was announced also in the news. And BMW is, although they are focusing on their factories, but this is a model that will tell you the importance of creating this harmony between and creating what they call the digital factory. So technically, all their plants, factories can benefit from whatever data, interaction, issues, challenges, nice innovations coming from the different operation across the whole world.
I love the example you mentioned because it will take me to the next question, which is the fragmented systems or the fragmented operations within the dealers and even within the frameworks of the companies. Now, when you talk about finance, logistics, supply chain, procurement, sales, service, spare parts, now put SAP on the side. Having those fragmented operations and no system linking them is a huge risk for any business owner.
Of course.
How important having, on the other hand, a tight system to tie up those operations end to end to their business and their success?
In fact, that's a very interesting question. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was having one of our prospects or a customer who's evaluating if they should go the SAP route or evaluating, all the solutions. And one of the challenges they mentioned that a very important piece of information, once the CEO asked for it, it took them 2 days to get it for them, for the CEO. So, and what we are living today, this type of information should be available in second, real time, technically. So imagine if you are today a dealer and you need to take, or you are part of the management and you want to take a decision, or you want to check the details about a certain customer who's complaining and creating a big buzz around certain service, that you are unable to get the facts very quickly so you can act very quickly. So this is the value of SAP and the solution we are talking about. So it's not about having different systems where when I need the information, then I have to go see what the system is saying and the other piece of information in another system. So creating that unified data layer, as I said, and minimizing the complexity of this integration. Yes, you might have certain products, they have better features in certain areas, CRM, for example, while in finance, there are other features. But if you look at the whole picture, the value you will get when you have a full integrated system is much more than a small feature here and there. And this was always the vision of SAP, really to build that integration, either by full SAP solution or, as I said, with partner solutions that fully complement the whole story for the customers.
Now, this triggers a next question, which is, should technology be helping leadership make better decisions or help the frontliners interact with the better business journey for the customer?
Technology should help everyone, right? And this is why when you have the right technology, you should be able to really support in fixing the challenges every persona is facing today. So hopefully, I mean, we just announced, as you know, our autonomous enterprise vision for the coming 5 years. So technically, what does it mean? It means if you are a CEO, if you are a CFO, if you are on the shop floor, if you are a sales representative, you will have access through your mobile to any type of data you need from your organization, and you can ask to execute any type of transactions also you want, or you ask the system to execute it on your behalf. So the technology is really enabler for, and this is why you need to have the right technology and the easy to use. So nowadays, if it's not easy to use, then the CEO will drop it, right? So this is why we are, all what we are building around the autonomous enterprise, especially for the automotive industry, is to make sure through your Copilot, which is a Joule, you can do whatever you want. You don't need to access any screen. You don't need access any report. You just ask the question or give the instruction, and the system should do it of course, based on the rules you defined. And this is very important, that when we talk autonomous, we think there is no human interaction. No human interaction will be there till you trust what the AI agents are doing for you, right? And then you say, okay, there is no need to check with me every time on the options and so on. So going back to your question, this how technology should be built, that support every persona and make his or her life much easier than it is today.
So basically, in helping each role make their life easier.
Of course.
This complements very much again to the integration layer between the OEMs and the dealers and the customer at the end.
Of course.
Because thinking about AI and the clean core and systems in general and how they are, and I remember one of the old customers that he's one of our big customers now, but back in the days they had 113 systems working together. And I remember that number until now because it was scary at that time when I heard it from him. He said, we are integrating between 113 systems. And I was like, seriously? He said, yeah, it's for the whole group. We have more than 50 companies. And it's really that makes or triggers that, again, the same example which you mentioned regarding BMW. It is very important going into the future, having an integration system or a system that integrates well with all the components around it, basically. Yeah. And in SAP's case, we are talking about a very limited number of components, which makes errors a lot less, very clean in terms of process and very lean as well. And I think that's key in this equation.
Yeah. In fact, this is what you mentioned, Shadi, is very important because, for example, when we talk about AI, why we call it business AI from our side? Because it's controlled, as you said. So it's enterprise data that we are talking about. It's not like you are asking a generic question on ChatGPT, because I'm asking about my data, and the system or the AI will come back to me with the options based on my data, my rules, my processes. So somehow it's controlled. The key is how to make this integrated and give the right data at the right time. So that's, of course, that's the most important part, to be frank, when it comes to, and this is where the governance, when we talk about AI and the security and all this stuff, this is really the big value we bring to the table as SAP, because all of this will be part of your platform. You don't have to worry about what usually AI do if it's not based on control type of data or enterprise data.
Yeah, but let's talk about it in practical terms in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
When we speak about the clean core and the connected systems and the integration layers, what or how does SAP look at that in a practical way?
Okay. So maybe let's take a step back and explain what's clean core to
exactly.
So historically, most of the implementation where you have a software or technology being implemented, what usually has been, the SI will do is go customize the product to match certain processes or certain specific requirement of the customer. Of course, these type of customization, because they are built in the core of the application, they will bottlenecks when you have a new version, new upgrades, and so on. So what we decided to do, that we will have a clean core, which is technically you don't touch the processes that are built in, and you keep, this means your updates on your cloud version will always be up to date on quarterly basis. Any specific requirement, processes changes, you do it as an extension, if you want, next to the application. And this way, whenever you have all these upgrades, also on the cloud using the same technology platform, which is the BTP and so on, this will allow you to always be up to date in terms of the features, the technology, the version, whatever is in the market. I'm in Q2 2026. I have the latest version of all my software. So why this is important? Of course, this is less costly on terms of upgrades and so on the customer. Second, you are simplifying your landscape, which also very important. And the third one, which is the most important piece, that when you have the latest technology, the latest innovations, so tomorrow you want to implement something new, it's very easy to do it. You don't have to say, no, we have to spend 12 months to do the upgrade of our software. Then after that, we can start working on the new stuff that we want to do. So Yes, these are somehow technical in the back end. The customer or the user will not see them, but these are really the most important part of any digital transformation journey that any customer is doing today. And it's proven today. I mean, you can look either from the customer experience today, and let's take the automotive industry, the dealers. By the way, I deal with 2 dealers as a customer. And I always, when I sit with the team there, I ask them how good is the system you're using, how user-friendly, and I try to get feedback, right? And you feel it. I mean, where you have fragmented system, where you have an integrated system, and sometimes I challenge them. Are you able to check the history of my whatever and get me this information? So if you get the answer quickly from an end user in front of you, that means they have a solid system in the back end. If not, then this is where the fragmented, and imagine this is a small interaction with the person you are dealing with when you take your car to the maintenance or to the service. So, of course, this is very important, and I think this is the most important thing when it comes to implementing AI and whatever innovation we are trying to do, that we make sure you have the clean core, as you said, and then we talk maybe later about, I talked a little bit about the data piece is there, and then your AI will work properly, and then you have the right outcome that you want.
But then I will challenge you in a different way. Companies nowadays, they always talk about AI, and that's the main headline of any conversation whatsoever,
Yes.
not only in the automotive industry.
Yes.
What should they actually be asking themselves in terms of what do they need to fix even before talking about AI? It doesn't make sense if they want to talk about AI and develop, and they have a lot of, I don't want to say only in fragmented systems, but loopholes inside their own business.
Yeah. In fact, I will say most of the companies, they failed in AI, especially the last 2 years, exactly because, as you said, they were not ready and they didn't do the proper assessment for their landscape and be ready for that. And this is exactly what we are trying to explain in our autonomous enterprise concept. So technically, you need 3 things. One, you have to make sure your processes and your business rules are implemented and are defined in your system, because we all say that if you have garbage data, your AI will not work properly. Who's producing this data? It's your processes and your application and your business rules defined in the backend. So we have to make sure the source is built properly. And this is where SAP, in all the processes that you are, if you are in finance, procurement, CX, HCM, supply chain, so you have all of these a built-in part of the system. So once you have this is done, then you look at your data. And in your data, you will have data coming from your SAP system and coming from non-SAP system. And this is where I said also we offer to our customer the BDC, the Business Data Cloud, which will get you all your data in the right format. You don't have to copy data and so on. Plus, we partner with big players like Snowflake, Databricks, Microsoft, Google, and so on. So you have one view of all your SAP and non-SAP data. Once you are having these 2 things, then you can start talking AI. Now, implementing AI is another also important decision you have to, because today you like an agent or you like a platform, you go to say, oh, this will help me to resolve. And many of those, even if they are ready with their data and their application, they failed or they didn't get the value that they want. So you need to make sure you have an enterprise platform for your AI. And this is where SAP Business AI will come. So on top of that layer, you will have the Business AI layer of SAP, which will give you all the integration you need. It will give you, as well, as we said, any type of extensions you want. It will give you a platform, the Joule Studio, to build your own AI agent. Of course, there will be many or more than 200 agents delivered by SAP. But the key part here, which many people are ignoring, is what we call the knowledge graph. What's the knowledge graph? In SAP, we have more than 7 million data points managed by the knowledge graph. Imagine it's a Google map, okay? You are a driver, okay? Without a Google map, you cannot reach your destination. I'm an AI agent, SAP or non-SAP agent. If I don't know the path, how I will go from this point to this point, which data points I need to get, then I will be lost. So the most important part of this enterprise AI platform is the knowledge graph. And this is where the SAP knowledge graph is the big asset we are delivering to our customers. And then from there, you can use, if you like, certain agents or certain LLMs and so on, you can build them, but it has to read from the right knowledge graph that you have, in this case, SAP knowledge graph. So really, if you don't have these three components, then AI might work, but you will not get the real value that you are after.
So in which vertical within the automotive industry do you think AI will deliver more value? So in the automotive, we have finance, we have supply chain, and that includes procurement, logistics, all the departments within that.
Yeah.
And we have the sales, we have the service, we have the spare parts.
Yeah.
And we have, of course, the customer interaction.
Yes. See, I will give you 3 examples, which are, from my point of view, they are really important. I imagine, without mentioning the customer name, but you will know the customer when I talk about it. This was almost 2 years ago, or even more, when the AI started, and we were sitting with the president of one of the automotive companies, and he asked for one thing. So we told him, if you need an AI agent to do something for you, he asked for one thing. And that one thing was to really get all the customer data and, of course, the cars and the details related to the prices and the services costs and so on, and create the right price of the car or the right price of the model, because sometimes you might rent a car or go through a subscription and so on. So this type of, it's not easy, by the way, but this type of agent, if they are giving you the right pricing for because the pricing for Shadi could be different from Marwan, right? This will really bring big value that really, I mean, this is really where you see the big value of AI. It's not anymore about just automating a process, efficiency, and so on. The other use case is the supply chain. I mean, and we face it last few months here in UAE. In fact, I will share with you some of our customers who are using one of our products called IBP in supply chain. They were able, I mean, their shipment companies were unable to give them the data. It took them maybe 2-3 months to tell them, where's my shipment? What's inside that container that we are shipping, and so on. While our IBP was within seconds telling them, your shipment is stuck in this place. This is what's in that container. While the other container already passed, it's in this country now, and this is what it includes in detail. So this information will help in planning, where are my cars? And if I'm an OEM, where's my raw material? How I can see it. And the most important part is the planning and forecasting, right? So it will help you to plan when you have these type of incident or issues or challenges, that you plan it well. So this is where AI also will help a lot in the logistics area. And of course, there is a important one, the predictive maintenance. And this can be related to your factories, plants, and so on, which today, if you shut down your factory for a few hours, it's a loss of millions, right? So this is really AI, I think, where it helps a lot. Of course, it will help finance, it will help in HR and so on, but the real value you will see, again, it depends on your operating model. And this is what we are focusing with our customers. Forget the standard type of AI stuff related to, even we give it for free now. We don't even charge for it, related to what we call embedded AI and efficiencies and so on. Focus on the use cases that really bring the big value for you and the big ROI.
One of the very big pain points within the automotive industry, actually for customers, is always getting the OEM to change something, or if they have some complaint. And I imagine AI will solve a very big chunk of that specifically, because when you have the right connected systems in the back end, and I mean supply chain, and I mean CRM, and I mean the spare parts again, and service, and all these things, when you have that connected with the make layers or the integration layers with the manufacturer and the dealer and the customer interfaces, it works magic. And that's where the real AI genius part comes into actually delivering what the customer demands.
100%. In fact, a good example, I was impressed the other day when I took one of my cars to the dealer, technically, to do the service, that the next day when I received my car, I received a call from the OEM asking me about my experience, if everything was okay, and so on. So imagine if today this is being done manually, if it's done by AI. So the AI is able really to look at the data that's shared by the customer, as you said, and then based on that, that feedback can help all the innovation or all the plans where the OEMs are putting today for the coming few years.
Now, that takes us to the next point. Again, but it's very much related to what we are talking about, is how important when you're planning the future within companies or dealerships or whatever customer solutions the businesses are thinking of, how important is it not only to think about SAP and what to align along with SAP, but also when you are looking at the solution from an ERP perspective, DMS, CRM, or CX point of view, how is it important into looking at the teams who actually operate in these ecosystems to actually make sure they know what kind of business you are working on in terms of process, in terms of checkpoints, in terms of challenges and pain points of the customers?
Yeah. See, I mean, again, let's look at the basic. In any project or implementation, you have, as you said, the processes, technology, and the people, right? And many of the projects usually struggle or they fail because of the change management piece. So this is exactly what you are raising here, Shadi. If you don't take of the change management, as you said, each team will have different capabilities. So you have to make sure you give them the right training and you convince them, because if they are not on board, then who will use the system? It will not be used. And on top of that, so change management is key for the users. But the most important part also now with all this AI, what the companies are doing to train their employees to use AI. Again, we are all talking that AI will not replace people, but it will replace people who are not able to use AI, right? So again, there is, and we as SAP, I mean, there are big budgets, to be frank, the last few years on training SAP employees how to use AI. I mean, this is something we do on daily basis. And we encourage every employee to use these AI tools. So to your point, there should be always a training for the different teams and make sure whatever solution you are giving to them, it satisfies the processes they have. Of course, sometimes they will push back, but you have to listen to them and understand why this will work, why this will not work. Again, trusting the best practices is important, but sometimes each dealer, each company might have their own way of doing things. Then this is where you have to look at it with an open mind. One thing which is also very important about SAP, and we talked about it before, the industry piece. We also have industry roundtables, if you want, or where we have the top, let's say, automotive companies. They meet twice or once a year. To be frank, our innovation, our enhancement of the product is coming from our customers, and these type of roundtables or councils, if you want, and this is helping us, helping Proaxia, everyone in the industry to really understand the challenges of these teams, make sure the solution fix these challenges. This is, of course, on top of what the end users are sharing with everyone.
I don't want to make it seem as an ad, but I know as a matter of fact that the teams operating, and the reason why I asked that question is that I know most of the teams operating are ex-automotive industry or businesses related to the automotive industry. And all of us, I know that as a matter of fact, again, we don't normally take whatever the process that the customer wants, but we also try to advise them as the best practice within that industry. In other words, and this complements very much to the change management topic which you just mentioned, I believe that we all help each other into getting to know the best ways into going to the future.
Yeah. See, as you said, I mean, the key thing that in order to be successful in this type of project is to have the open-minded of the business users and to help them and convince them with whatever is coming. I mean, it's not a secret. I think many people, they heard it before. Almost more than 60% of customizations usually you do on a software, after a few years, they are not used because you think this is the best way, but then you spent money, effort on these things and it doesn't happen. One good strategy that we always push with our customers when we implement or we go into big transformation project, that we ask the C-level of the customers that any type of changes from best practices, it should come to you to approve, Mr. CEO, CFO, COO, and so on. And usually these cases that come to the top management for approval are really the top critical things that should be part of the system, which is fine, and we should support it, as we said. But it's part of the job of the implementation of the SI and SAP to convince the business with these best practices. Of course, the management also should be on board to support this type of vision, because really that's very important. At the end, when you buy a product from SAP or any technology company, you are not buying a software that's built today. This is the result of more than 50 years of experience with different customers in different industries, different countries, and so on. So that's very important that the customers look at it from that perspective. And again, they have the right to challenge, but at the same time, this is where the gap will be much, much smaller to support specific requirement on functionalities here and there.
I love how you phrased it, because that leads me to a very important conclusion, which is reducing complexity and reducing customizations. Try to stick to the best practices. Yeah. Make your life simple. At the end of the day,
100%.
Yes, of course, you can customize some of the processes, but again, depends on what your actual, during the change management part, again, what your actual process within that business absolutely needs.
Yeah. In fact, a good example, I sat in many steercos of the projects going on. A recent one of the CEOs, I think the CFO was challenging on a certain process. And then the CFO asked him, okay, what are we losing if we don't implement our process and we implement the best practice? Can you tell me by $sign, so how much I'm losing if I'm not doing it? And technically, after a quick assessment, even in the room, before going into the details, they discover this is, peanuts. So why are we even wasting our time to discuss it? Let's go the best practices and move on and find our way to make it happen, because it cannot be that thousands of other companies are using it and it's working fine, and for us, it will not work, right?
This leads us to a very important point, which is the simpler you make the solution,
100%.
Makes the people, even I don't want to say customers, because I know SAP doesn't look at customers or the partners or the people who they serve as customers. Basically, they consider it as a family that they are trying to complement each other for an aligned success.
See, simplification is key in anything, right? Not only in technology, but usually it's not easy to make things simple. Sometimes the industry by itself or the function by itself is complex. What you need to do is to simplify it to the maximum you can. Sometimes you are able to achieve, sometimes no. But at the end, going to the main thing is the change management, really, and convincing people and proving to the people that this is the best, this is a way better than this way or that way. So this is why usually customers don't give the change management piece the right value or attention during projects. And then throughout the project, we all suffer, and we have to go focus on it and make sure we have all the people, all the end users on board.
And I think also there is another very important point when we are talking about the same area here. The main reason why SAP kept the open solutions for collaboration is because SAP believes that in order for the customer or the people they serve to have a complete, durable solution that they use for a simpler journey, this all has to be tied together.
100%. It has to be working all together in a seamless way. And as you said, the openness concept in technology is very important. And if you look at all the technology vendors who are very successful and others who maybe lost the market share, you'll see that the open platform concept is key in everything, because you cannot close your platform and so on, especially in automotive. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Exactly. I didn't want to comment on that, but it was...
today customers are saying we cannot do anything. It's closed. I have to call someone in UK or wherever to do... technically we're replacing all these products. One of them, they are making our life easy, right?
By the way, Marwan, there is a secret to that. that was the main reason I joined Proaxia 4 years ago. And I don't tell people that much, even openly, because I don't want people also to be a bit sensitive about it. But and I remember back in the days, Peter and Bijoy, when we spoke together, and they told me, why would you join us? I told them because I know SAP, I've read about Proaxia, and I really admire the journey. I admire how it developed. I admire the native integration part, the progress, even when AI topic was opened, how things, how people are looking within Proaxia, especially leadership. They really are focusing and aligning even with SAP, with even sometimes with competitor solutions that customers sometimes asks us to integrate with. We have the open sources. So we tell the customer, no problem, we want to help you out. Because at the end of the day, a solution is only as good as you don't harm the main backbone or the main core.
True.
Now, we are approaching the end of today's episode. But really to conclude, the main key here is always to make the end customer feel he is having a seamless customer journey, basically. Now, this has to be end-to-end. And when we say end-to-end, it's starting from the spare part that comes and it's within the car itself until the customer interaction by a phone call or even a text message.
Yeah. See, as you said, Yani, we talked a lot about integration and one systems, and I always say it, I mean, at the end, what differentiates one dealer or one OEM from the other is really the service, how happy is the end user at the end or the end customer. So we are all working, if we are SAP, if we are Proaxia, if we are the dealer, if we are the OEM, we're making sure that the customer is happy. Of course, everyone has a different role in the whole journey. From our side as a technology partner for the OEM or for the dealer, we have to make sure we are giving them all the tools that provide them with the data and the feedback that the customer is getting, and making sure we are giving them the tools that will help them to answer those customers in the right way. Plus, as you said, the customer journey is very important. I think one of the challenges usually the customers we deal with have, sometimes they don't really know their customer journey. So this is where it should all start. I mean, as I told you, when I go, and really every time I visit a dealer, I try to evaluate the process itself, checking on the system. Maybe because I'm a part of the technology world, but really this is all about how is this end user of this dealer, I mean, today, how is he happy, not happy? Is he getting the right support from the tools? Me as a customer, if I want to track how much time still for my car to finish the service, for example, as you said, I want to share feedback with the OEM. If they have this feature that I saw in my other car, why they don't have it here, why it's not available there. So creating that ecosystem and having the backbone system running smoothly, it's not easy, of course, but once you have it, then this is where you can be really a top dealer or a top OEM, and this is where your customers will be happy customers.
The solution is always all about the people.
Correct.
And before we close today's episode, I'm going to have to take some messages from you.
Mm-hmm.
But I will start with the first one, which is to the young generation which is going into technology, going into the automotive industry, business transformation. So what kind of advice would you give to these?
Yeah. See, I will tell you two things. First, I mean, being one of the leading technology companies, we have a lot of partnership with universities and schools. And I meet frequently presidents of universities. They come to me asking me and my other colleagues about the future jobs. You know, they want to prepare their programs to support what's coming in the future in terms of jobs. And my message is always the same. Guys, you have to focus on one thing, the soft skills of the people. I mean, any one of us will learn technology and will learn new things. But what you need to focus on is the soft skills. So learning, helping those students how to get the right soft skills, communication, public speaking, negotiation, and all this stuff. So my advice to the young people, this is the same advice I'm giving to my kids technically, is really to focus. And this is what I try on daily basis, is to help them to really learn these type of skills. Because learning a new thing or something that will come in the future, today, if you are preparing a training plan even for your employees, right? So you don't know really what's coming after 2-3 years, but you have to make sure you are ready. So this is my message to all the young graduates or students who are still studying today, is to focus really on these soft skills. So how I can make sure I have the right soft skills and I interact with people and so on. And then if there is a new AI technology or non-AI technology coming to the market, that's something I can learn very quickly.
Now, our next message will be towards the IT professionals. And I mean, past couple of weeks, I've had various conversations, and most of the leaders there, or even the IT professionals, only look at the complex projects in terms of go live. However, there is a very important aspect, and I think you would definitely have a message there when it's to do with the people and even adopting the change within the organization. And I know you have slightly touched base during today's conversation.
I mean, my big advice, which I always share also with the team, is it's the success of any project or any IT project. It's about the value we bring to the customer. So we have to focus on the value. It doesn't mean anything if we go live and then you go ask the users, the management, and they tell you, I didn't see any change. So it's similar to the previous system I have. I still do this manually and that manually and so on. So I know there are always pressure on the people delivering the project. They have certain period of time and certain budget that they have to deliver with that time frame. But this is not a success if you deliver on budget, on time, and the value is not being realized. So from day one, we have to set the right KPIs related to the value that we should realize. And we should work towards that KPI, not really just the go live date and the stuff that we have to implement. Because many of the times I'm surprised that people ignore this part and then we ended up with a project we think it's successful, but in reality it's not successful. So IT professionals should be open-minded, take a step back, look at it from another perspective, and the most important piece, which sometimes they ignore, to put themselves in the shoes of the customer. That's always the case. I mean, yes, we think we know the technology, we know how to run projects and so on. But guys, you have to take a step back, look at the challenges this customer is facing, totally different than the other customer where you did another project a few months ago. So that's always, and as we said, it's all about people. Look at all the implementations we have together. It's really about the quality of the people and the resources, being a project manager, consultant, manager, whoever is part of that project. It's the quality of the resources from our side, from the SI side, and from the customer side. So we end up with the people.
Now, the last message is going to be a little bit tricky, and you will have to keep up with me.
Okay.
Because it's actually for the automotive professionals. And now when they hear about AI and systems and change and the next phase of the automotive industry, and they start thinking, okay, AI will replace jobs. What's your advice for them in order, even as a worst case scenario, that they need to work on themselves, develop? What skills would they need? What do they need in that next phase coming up?
Yeah. In fact, I will say one thing. One of my colleagues, maybe many people also heard it, shared with me when we were talking about these changes and losing jobs and so on. When the ATM machines were created, many people thought that their banks will be firing lots of people and all this stuff. And then it ended up, they were hiring more, okay? Because yes, we are getting you a new tool, but the creativity of people should focus on something else. So what's the next thing we as automotive company, we need to offer to the market? In fact, AI will help us to get rid of and minimize wasting our time in things that we should not be doing technically from day one. And we focus on the creativity part. What are the additional value, the additional service we can bring to our customers that will take this industry to the next level? And you feel it today, right? some OEMs are failing big time and the others are shining and creating very quick successes, right? And this is all because of that mindset. Again, I repeat the same story that many people heard it many times. AI will not replace jobs, will not replace people. Yes, it will replace jobs, but you as a professional, you should learn how to use AI and how to be more creative and use your brain in things that really will take it to the next level. So like what happened in the banking sector with the ATMs, the automotive industry should look at it from that perspective as well. And for me, I think the automotive industry will be one, of the, I would say, promising and with the era of AI to really create something very unique to the humanity. So they have big opportunity, but they have to play it right.
May I compliment your answer? Because I need to mention a personal story. But it confirms what you're saying. A year and a half back, when I started doing some stuff on the internet and publishing on YouTube, that's when I started getting the help of AI and search engines as well and other stuff. And I started to learn different things. Originally, I'm an automotive engineer, hardcore. I'm a mechanics guy. University mechanics as well, automotive. So hardcore. And then I started learning lights. I started learning videography. I started learning publishing and even doing a lot of stuff with AI. And that's thanks to ChatGPT and a couple of other platforms. And honestly speaking, I realized I'm 48 years old, and I started realizing I'm expanding my knowledge in ways I never imagined I would go with. It made me do like 200% of what I used to do.
Yeah.
And still, I'm keeping up with all the stuff. I mean, a lot of people don't know that podcast is,
and you
is
feel
for
motivated,
me, it's just a hobby.
excited, and
Exactly. You were even telling me today, I didn't imagine you're keeping up with both. It's actually a hobby.
yes,
And for me, I managed to keep up with my full-time job along with my hobby and still with what I love and trying to bring value to the industry.
good.
And with that, really, Marwan, I would like to really thank you for today's insights and having us today in SAP's office. It was really a pleasure also celebrating hitting the 100,000 with you.
Yeah.
It really means a lot.
So Mabruk again. This is a
Thank you
big
very
milestone, and I'm happy you're celebrating it in SAP office. Hopefully, the next one, the 1 million, we will celebrate it together
Also,
as well.
yeah.
And again, I want to thank you. Thank Proaxia and you, Shadi, specifically, because really your passion in the industry, and we need more people like you to. And I hope we have many people in other industries like Shadi in the automotive. So all the best. And I hope I added something to your podcast.
Thank you very much. And it was a great pleasure having you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.